Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and welcome to my tutorial for installing Anaconda for my Python related courses. I want to warn plain old YouTubers who have arrived here that this is going to be a tutorial that's pretty specific to my classes. So it's not going to have a lot of general value. So if you decide to stay, you've been warned. Okay, I this is this is actually a re-recording uh, of this tutorial. Um, I'm just at the beginning of the fall 2019 semester, and some of the options have changed on how to get all these products to work with each other. And because of that, I've had to uh, re-record, and I'll be republishing this tutorial because when I got to the end of the chain of products uh, last time, I still couldn't get everything to work. But I've got it all working now, so never fear. Um, this is to help you install Anaconda on Windows 10 for one of my uh, Python related courses, either the introduction to Python course or uh, the web frameworks course, which uses Django. Okay, and here we are. We've got Windows 10 open. I have it open in my virtual machine, and I'm going to open up the Edge browser, and let's hope that fires up soon. Maybe try it again. Here it is. And I want to go and download the Anaconda software. So to do that, I'm just going to do a search on Anaconda download. That usually works for me. Okay, and here's a link. Looks good. And there's a button up here on the menu for download. So I clicked on that. And something that's a little subtle here is that um, what we're looking at now is the Mac OS installer, because I'm running this on my Mac under a virtual machine, and somehow it's able to detect that it's on a Mac all the same. So I need to come up here and click on Windows, and it's going to give us an opportunity to install either the Python 3 version or the Python 2 version of Anaconda. I'm pleased to say that Python 2 is nearly dead. uh, the support for Python 2 is over at the end of this calendar year. I was never a Python 2 fan. I teach all my courses with Python 3. So we're going to be downloading the Python 3 version because we don't fool with the Python 2 version. And what we want to do is, instead of clicking the download button, there are two links down here below it, and we're going to take the top one. Um, I have a 64-bit operating system here on my Windows 10. I guess you could have a 32. I'm gonna click on the 64-bit graphical installer. You pick on the one that makes sense for your version of Windows 10. So here we go. We're clicking on that. Then we're going to go down and choose Save. And now it's downloading pretty quickly. And after it downloads, it typically uh, scans it for viruses, which it's doing now. And now we're going to open the folder. Okay, there we go. There's Anaconda. Now, that's all we need the browser for right now. That's it. Okay. So let's go and do the install. And how do we do this? Just with a plain old double click. And it's going to install Anaconda for us. We're in the dialog. Here's the first panel. We just say next. Then we click on I agree to accept the license agreement. Install for the default is just me. That'll work just fine. It complains that my user ID name has a space in it. It turns out that seems to work okay. So I'm going to accept that and click next. It complains again. That's fine. And here's where I went wrong the first time I recorded this tutorial. I did not check the box up top here, add Anaconda to my path environment variable name. And I used to be able to make that work. But, and in fact, when you do click it, it turns red and it warns you that you don't want to do it. But I can tell you from experience that you do want to do it. Okay? It may not be without side effects, but for what we want to use Anaconda for right now, which is to support our use of PyCharm, we definitely want to click both the checkboxes on this dialog panel. Then we're going to click install. And it's going to start to bring down files. And this could take a while. This can take 15 or 20 minutes, depending upon how busy the repository is that we're connecting to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put you on pause until we have all that downloaded. Okay, we're back. And so all the files have downloaded, and it's time to click the next button on this panel. Don't think it heard me. The next panel is just an advertisement for PyCharm. We're going to install PyCharm eventually for this course. For both of these courses. So we're just going to click the next button and learn more about Anaconda Cloud, learn how to get started with Anaconda. Well, those probably won't hurt us. They'll probably just bring something up in the browser, I'm thinking. Yeah. And I didn't really want to see them, but I didn't want to say no to something. So I'm closing the browser. And so that should go away. All right. Okay, at least I thought I was closing the browser. Every once in a while with one of these virtual machines, you'll get a pause that you probably wouldn't get on a hardware a hardware-based installation of the operating system. Okay, so that's that. Now things are working again. Let's go start up Anaconda. Okay. So I just want to point out that Anaconda is a couple of things, but for the most part, it's a bunch of coordinated package files, Python package files that have been downloaded. So there's nothing to run there in the conventional sense. The thing to run is this. Let's go look at Anaconda. Anaconda 364-bit, there's a drop down. The thing to run is Anaconda Navigator. Now, what I usually like to do is I usually like to add it to the taskbar. So to do that, I hover over the link here for Anaconda Navigator. I right click. I don't do pin to start because that's not where I want to pin it. I go to more and then I come over and I pick pin to taskbar. That's where I like it. And now I get all that thing to close and I click on the icon. This green circle is the icon for Anaconda Navigator. So we'll click on that and it'll fire up. And what we're going to do now is we're going to use this, primarily what we use Anaconda Navigator for is to build virtual environments that we're going to use with PyCharm. And we're going to build one for the introduction to Python course. And then we're going to pause and I'm going to tell the introduction to Python people that they can leave if they want or stay. And then we're going to build an environment for the Django-based course. Okay, so how does this work? Well, this is a typical application. The panel on the left is like a menu. So what we want to work with environments, so we'll click on that. And now it turns into a 3-panel screen. And the middle panel has a list of the available environments. And then when we click on one, like this plain old Python development that I have hanging around from a prior installation, it shows us in the right panel the packages that are installed in that virtual environment. Because this is just hanging around and I don't need it anymore, I'm going to come down here to the bottom of the middle panel and click on, over on the right side, I'm going to click on remove. And I have to confirm that and it's going to go away. And you can always see when you give it a command to build or delete an environment. In the right panel on the bottom, you can see the action that's actually going on behind the scenes. And so now in the middle panel, we're on the base or root environment, and that's not typically one that we use because it has either all or a preponderance of the packages in it, so it's way too big. More typically, we build an environment just tailored to the task at hand. So again, we're going to do two. We're going to do one for use in the introductory Python course, and then we're going to do one for the Django related course. Okay, so in the middle panel, we create a new environment by going down to the bottom on the left side and clicking the create button. And then it pops up a dialog. We have to tell it what Python we want. So from the dropdown, we're going to pick 3.7. That's what we're going to be using. This is the fall of 2019. Certainly for this academic year, 2019-2020, we're probably going to be using Python 3.7. Okay. And then there's a checkbox for R, but we don't use R in either of our two Python-related courses, so we're not going to ask for that. And the environment name, we all want to use the same one because when we hand in our work, when you hand in your work, you don't include the virtual environment. And so if the name that you use for your virtual environment and the name that I use are the same, then I don't have to reconfigure your project in order to test your work. Okay? So for the Python, introductory Python course, the name we're all going to use is E4, environment 4, underscore, trainer, underscore, that's my last name, Python, underscore, course. E4 trainer Python course. And when we click on create, it begins to build it. And you can see that action along the bottom of the right side. Okay, so that's being built for us. And it's reasonably fast, so I'm going to try not to pause it here. And so what happens is that once we get that done, once that all resolved, what we're going to see on in the right panel is a list of the Python packages installed, and that's going to be shorter than the list we're seeing now. There we go. So the first one is CA certificates. The last one is Windsor Store. The most important one is a Python, and the version is 3.7.4. So again, in this academic year, we're going to be working on 3.7 point something. Right now it's 3.7.4. If it turns out to be a newer version, like 3.7.8, unless I've warned you off of that, feel free to use it. Okay? Typically, what I want you to do is use the most recent version within the parameters that we've agreed upon, unless somehow associated with the class, I've been spreading the word that that's a combination that's not going to work for us. All right, so we have that. Be right back. Okay, now that's ready to go. Okay, so if you're in the introductory Python course and you don't want to hang around just to see what kind of environment we build for Django, well, this is it. I'm going to say bye for you, or to you, rather. If you're going to be working with Django, we're going to create another environment for that work. So we're going to go down to the bottom and click on Create again. And of course, we're going to be using Python 3.7. Okay, we're going to be using that for the entire 2019-2020 academic year. We don't need R. And we have a similar naming scheme, E4 trainer Django, DJANGO course. Okay, and we click on create. And you can notice on the bottom of the right-hand side that it's starting to build that. Now, I just want to point out that the way that we build these virtual environments is that we ask for the basics in that first dialogue, and then it comes back with that. So right now, it's done. It's created this new environment, but it contains the same thing that we just did for the introductory Python course. Okay, we've got Python 3.7.4, and we've got the same things here. So, how do you install further things? Okay, well, it turns out that the current release of Anaconda that we're using here has a problem in properly installing the packages for Django. And why is that? I think that some of the configuration files are broken. Okay, so I'm going to show you how we would typically install Django and the packages that it requires as precursors. But that's going to fail. And then I'm going to show you how we install things when we can't use this graphical based Anaconda Navigator installer. Okay. Okay. So right now in the right hand panel, we have a list of what's installed. So if you go up towards the top on the left, you can see the drop down. We've chosen install. Well, Django isn't installed, so let's click on not installed. Now we get a really long list. Okay. Now we can go hunt for Django. It should be in alphabetical order. Okay. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to go over use this search packages box, and we're just going to type in Django, DJANGO, and you can see that we've got one package with the Django name. It's version 2.2.1. And we're going to be using for the academic year to 2019-2020, we're going to be using some version of Django 2.2. Okay. 2.2.1 is the latest that has been included in the Anaconda distribution. Okay. Typically, before packages are brought over to the Anaconda distribution, there are more recent versions available in other repositories. Okay, so 2.2.1 would have been fine for us. So how would we install it? Well, here's what we would do. We would check the checkbox. In the lower right is an apply button. We click apply. It goes out, it looks through its configuration files, and it says, if I'm going to install Django, I also have to install Python. Okay, that's fine. So we click on apply, and normally, if everything were working as advertised, it would install. Everything would be fine. And unfortunately, that's not what's going to happen. So we can see down here at the bottom, it's fetching Django 2.2.1, and now it's fetching Python. And what we're expecting is when they install, they actually pop off of the not installed list. That's how you know that they're properly installed. But this one is not going to pop off the not installed list. Son of a gun, it did. It popped off the not installed list. Well, look at that. Let's go back to the installed list. Perhaps that part of it has been fixed. Okay, so now we go in, it says Django's there. All right, go over. So how did I get to see this? Well, I went to the upper left and I picked, from the drop down, I picked installed. But I'm still using the search box. So let's click the X in the search box. And now we see everything here. So we do see Django 2.2.1. Okay, that makes sense. And we do see that we got Python. But I just happen to know that we have another requirement for Django, and it's called SQL parse, and that should be in the list of required packages to install Django, but unfortunately it's not. Okay, so what could we do? Well, one of the things we could do if we, well, at this point, I'm just going to go to what do we do when we can't get the graphical installer to work? Okay, and here's what we do. Go over to the name of our environment. There's a triangle to the right. We click on that. And then we click on Open Terminal. And we get a command line. Okay? Now, uh, we are at the command line, and our Conda environment, our Conda virtual environment, it is currently operational. You can see it in the parens on the left side. E for trainer Django course. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use some um, commands at the command line that are part of Conda. Okay. And how do I know about those? Well, I know about those because I've read them on various instruction sets, but there's a pretty useful document called the Conda Cheat Sheet that is available from the Anaconda site. And that will give you a lot of the commands that the Conda, the command line commands. Okay, so for instance, one of them is Conda space list. And what do you get? Well, you get a list of what's installed. Okay, well, they're the things that we saw before. We saw Django 2.2.1, and we saw Python. Okay, but we still don't see this SQL parse because it's not taking care of that. Okay, so if we can't get the graphical installer to do the package installs that we want, how do we do it? Well, we just use the plain old Python pip installer, which will run in the environment that we're in now, and it will change the contents. It'll change the list of packages that are in that virtual environment. Okay, so the program that does the installing is called pip. So you say pip space install, and what do we want to install? Well, we actually want to update the install, so that's has a flag hyphen capital U. We want to update the install of pip. Okay. So what you typically do when you're about to use the pip installer at the command line is make sure you have the latest version of the pip installer. And there is a later version that isn't part of the Anaconda distribution. So here we go. The pip that we have is 19.2.2, and it's uninstalling that. And it's going to install 19.2.3 here in a second. And then we get some red text that complains that there was a problem with our flag hyphen capital U. But even with that complaint, if we do a conda list again, conda space list, we'll look and we'll see, well, we really do have that later version of pip that we wanted. Okay, that's fine. All right, now the next thing we want to do is we want to use pip to install a particular version of, we want pip to do a Django install. So you say pip space install, and we could just say Django. Okay, and if we did that, what we would get is we'd get the latest version of Django. So if that's the one we have, we come back and say, well, that requirement is already met by the version that's already installed. Or if there's a later version, then it would go fetch that and it would do the installs. And then it would adjust any packages that are requirements or precursors to the to that Django package. Okay. But what if we want either a particular version. Like, what if we wanted to make sure we got Django 2.2.1 again? Well, we could say Django equal uh, 2.2.1. I happen to know that when we were working over on Mac OS, we got 2.2.4, so we could say 2.2.4. Now, what I've said is that for this current academic year, we want to use some version of Django 2.2. So is there a way to say, look, give me the most recent version of Django 2.2? Turns out there is. So instead of equal, we do tilde equal 2.2. So that's going to give us the latest version available that's part of the 2.2 series. So let's hit enter. And now we're going to see. And what's interesting is, what did we get? Collecting SQL parse. Now this is interesting. Now it said that because I asked for something that was part of 2.2, all right, that 2.2.1 was just fine. And it just included this SQL parse. Well, I don't really like that. So here's what I'm going to do. I happen to know that over on the version of this we did for Mac OS, that we got 2.2.4. And I want you all using the same version. So let's do this. Equal. Oh, by the way, here's what I did. I used the up arrow in order to get back the command I just entered. So up arrow. Oh, sorry. Down arrow. Well, I would have used the up arrow to get there. So that's the one that I just had entered. Pip install Django tilde equal 2.2. And let's get rid of the tilde equal. Let's say equal 2.4, because I know that's out there. Okay? And then let's hit enter. So now it's going to couldn't I find a version that satisfies 2.4? Now this is interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, because I did it wrong. Gosh, I hate that. I meant 2.2.4. 2.2.4. Wait, you're getting the full service today, complete with mistakes. I apologize for that. 2.2.4. Let's see it now. So it's downloading 2.2.4. That's good. I thought it was available because that's what we did over when we did all this for Mac OS. And this is just a case of a watch pot never boils. Should be down here soon. Okay. So it's uninstalling 2.2.1. Successfully uninstalled. That's good. Let's see what we've got here. And then there are two requirements. There's PITES and SQL parse, which it already has. And if they're the right versions, it may leave them as is. Yep, I think it did. So how can we know what's currently installed? Well, with conda space list. And let's see. So Django version 2.2.4, PITES 2019.2, SQL parse 0.3.0. Now, what I like is I happen to know that that's what we had when we did this over under Mac OS. So everybody kind of using the same version. Okay, and how do we get out of here? We get out of here with the exit. Okay, now I just want to point out we've come back to the Anaconda Navigator graphical installer and look at the version of Django it says we have 2.2.1. Well, that's not what we have. Look at the version of Python. That's the right one. But do we have SQL parse? No, we don't have SQL parse here. So the list that you get here is what was installed with the graphical installer. Okay. Now, we know that the right things are actually installed in the virtual environment because we can go back to it, open the terminal again. We can do a conda list, and this is what's actually there. Now, why the disparity? Well, because of the method with which things were installed. Should it really behave that way? Gosh, I don't think so, but that's the way it does, so don't be surprised. When we get this over and start using it in PyCharm, we'll be able to see the proper versions of Django and the rest of the things as being installed. Okay. Okay, so that's it. Okay, we're done with Anaconda Navigator, so we can close that. And we're done with the tutorial on installing Anaconda and how to configure environments, one for the Intro to Python course and one for the Django related courses. And now you're ready to go to the tutorial that I have for installing PyCharm and configuring projects for one or both of the two Python related courses that I teach. So I'm going to send you off to that and say bye until next time. Bye-bye.